The last thing Wade Jensen expected at 6 in the morning on a freezing Tuesday was to be wiping down champagne flutes in a luxury penthouse suite, while praying his 6-year-old daughter didn't wake up crying for him. "Excuse me, this isn't the lobby," came a voice behind him, smooth, clipped, and clearly used to being obeyed. Wade spun around, catching the edge of the tray before it slipped. Standing in front of him was a woman in a black coat that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her dark hair was twisted into a sleek bun, and she looked at him like he didn't belong in the room, which, to be fair, he didn't. "I'm covering for someone," he said, adjusting the collar of his too big blazer. "Maintenance called out sick. I'm just cleaning up from the party last night." Her eyes flicked to the name tag hanging crookedly from his chest. "Wade, huh?" He raised an eyebrow. "Guilty." She didn't smile, but something flickered in her eyes. "I'm Holland Kane. I booked the penthouse for the week. There shouldn't have been a party last night." Wade looked around at the glitter-strewn carpet and empty champagne bottles. "Then someone's getting fired," he said under his breath, then added quickly, "Not me. Just clocked in an hour ago." Her gaze lingered on him a second too long. Then she walked past him, heels clicking across the marble. "Make sure the mess is gone before noon. I have a meeting here." "Yes, ma'am," he said, giving her a quick nod. But as she reached the door to the master bedroom, she paused. "You always this polite." He smiled faintly. "When someone's wearing heels that expensive, yeah. Figure they could have me arrested with one phone call." She actually laughed. It was short, surprised, and real. Wade didn't think much of it until later that night, when the front desk called and told him the guest in the penthouse had requested him personally to bring up her dinner. He didn't have time to question why a woman like Holland Kane wanted him delivering her food. He was already juggling part-time shifts at 2 jobs and barely scraping enough together to pay for his daughter's daycare. "Daddy, can you come home early tonight?" Addie asked that afternoon, her wide hazel eyes blinking up at him as he packed her lunch. "I'll try, bug," he said, kissing her forehead. "But I gotta make a little more this week, okay? Your ballet shoes aren't gonna buy themselves." She giggled. "What if I dance so good they give me shoes?" He smiled, but it tugged at something in his chest. "That's the dream, baby." By the time he reached the hotel again, he was running on caffeine and hope. He took the elevator up to the penthouse and knocked twice. Holland opened the door herself. This time, her coat was gone, and she wore a sleeveless silk top and tailored pants. Still sharp, still out of his league. "You again," she said, stepping back. He held up the tray. "You requested me." Curiosity got the better of me. She walked toward the dining area. "You don't talk like hotel staff." "I used to teach high school before." He trailed off, setting the tray down carefully. "Before what?" He hesitated. "Before my wife left, took off after our daughter turned 2. Since then, I've been doing what can." Something shifted in her expression. "You're a single dad." "Full-time, Addie's 6. Smart, sassy, thinks she can run the world." Holland smiled an actual smile this time. "Sounds like my kind of girl." He wasn't sure what made him do it, but the next words slipped out before he could stop them. "You should meet her. You two would get along." There was a silence. Then Holland said, "Maybe I will." The next few nights, she kept requesting him. Sometimes it was under the excuse of room service, sometimes to ask for towels she didn't need. Wade didn't question it. He just showed up. One night, she was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, scrolling through her laptop. "You have a break coming up?" she asked. He blinked. "What?" "You work nonstop," she said, eyes still on the screen. "When was the last time you took a night off?" He laughed. "That's not really an option, Holland." She looked up. "Why not?" "Because if I don't work, Addie doesn't eat, or dance, or get to keep her hamster, which she named Princess Donut." Holland actually laughed. Princess Donut. She has taste. Holland set the laptop aside. I'm serious, Wade. You're smart. You're good with people. You shouldn't be delivering towels at midnight. Well, unless you're offering me a better job, I'm kinda stuck. She tilted her head. Maybe I am. He narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? I own this hotel, she said. Actually, I own the whole chain. Wade blinked. Wait, you're the CEO of Kane Holdings. Surprise, she said, like it wasn't a big deal. He stared at her for a long moment, then let out a breath. So you're telling me I've been delivering towels to a billionaire? Technically, I didn't need the towels, she said. I just liked talking to you. His heart thudded in his chest. Why? She looked at him, then really looked. Because you're real. Everyone else in my world either wants something from me or fakes their smile. You don't, you're just you. He didn't know what to say to that, but something in the room shifted. The air felt warmer, closer. Can I ask you something? He said quietly. Anything. Why are you here? I mean, really, you could be anywhere in the world. She hesitated, then said, I got tired of pretending, of being perfect. I needed to disappear for a while. This hotel is mine, but no one expects to see me here. It's the only place I can breathe. Wade nodded. Yes, I get that. Silence stretched between them again, but this time it was different, comfortable. Then Holland said, come to dinner with me tomorrow night. He blinked, like a shift. No, she said, standing slowly, like a date. Wade stared at her, stunned. I'll pay for a sitter for Addie, she added quickly, unless you don't date guests. I don't, he said, then after a beat added, but billionaires who request towels for no reason, that's a gray area. She smiled. Is that a yes? He couldn't stop the grin that spread across his face. That's a hell yes. Wade stood outside the restaurant entrance, adjusting the sleeves of the only blazer he owned that didn't have a hotel logo stitched on the front. The navy fabric was slightly worn at the elbows, but clean. He'd borrowed a tie from his neighbor and used half a can of hair gel to tame the mess on his head. Still, nothing could prepare him for the woman who stepped out of the black car that pulled up moments later. Holland Kane didn't walk, she arrived. Clad in a midnight blue gown that shimmered like water under moonlight, she stepped onto the sidewalk with the quiet confidence of someone who owned everything within her line of sight. Her hair was down this time, cascading over her shoulders in soft waves. The driver held the door open, but her eyes were already locked on Wade. You clean up well, she said, voice low as she reached him. He opened the restaurant door for her. I'm flattered. I was worried I'd look like I was interviewing for a job I had no business applying for. You're not, she said, brushing past him. You're here because I want you to be. The hostess greeted them and led them through a candlelit dining room with vaulted ceilings and glass chandeliers that dripped like ice. Waiters moved like clockwork, and the scent of seared scallops lingered in the air. Their table was already set. A chilled bottle of wine waited in a silver cradle. Wade pulled out Holland's chair before taking his seat across from her. I've never eaten anywhere that doesn't have a kid's menu, he said, unfolding his napkin. Then let's make it memorable, she replied, tilting her head. Tell me something about you I don't know. He looked at her for a moment, then said, I used to play piano, not well, but enough to get through college playing gigs at weddings and hotel bars. She leaned forward slightly. What made you stop? He lifted his glass. Life got loud, there wasn't room for quiet things. She didn't press. Instead, she studied him the way someone might observe a painting, curious, thoughtful, searching for the story behind the surface. What about you? He asked. What did you want to be before you were you? That made her pause. I wanted to be a travel writer. backpack through Europe, write for obscure magazines, live on train schedules and stale croissants. He laughed. That's oddly specific. I had a whole plan, then my father died and I took over the company. I was 23. Wade's smile faded. That's young. I didn't have a choice, she said, fingers brushing the rim of her glass. By the time I looked up, 5 years had passed and I was in boardrooms instead of train stations. The waiter arrived with their appetizers, but neither touched the food right away. You know, Wade said, you don't act like the people I see in suits all day. And how do they act? Like they're always waiting for someone to challenge them. Like they forgot how to laugh without checking their reflection first. She blinked slowly. And how do I act? Like you're still deciding if the world's worth trusting. There was a beat of silence, then she picked up her fork. That might be the most accurate thing anyone's ever said to me. They ate slowly, conversation sliding between them like something familiar but still new. He told her about Addie's obsession with drawing comic book heroes and how she'd once convinced an entire daycare class she had magical powers by hiding her teacher's keys. Holland, in turn, confessed she'd never learned to ride a bike and kept a collection of postcards from cities she'd never visited. By the time dessert arrived a molten chocolate cake, neither of them had room for Wade leaned back and let out a low laugh. I don't know how you do it. Live in this world of champagne and caviar like it's normal. She raised an eyebrow. You think I'm used to this? Aren't you? I've spent years pretending I am, she admitted, but it always felt like I was playing a role. You ever feel that way? He nodded. Every day. I smile for guests, thank people who treat me like furniture, then go home and read bedtime stories like I'm not exhausted. I'd like to see that, she said suddenly. He blinked. See what? You with her, the way you talk about Addie. I want to see it for myself. He hesitated. You want to meet my daughter? If that's okay. He studied her for a moment. It's more than okay, but she's not impressed by gowns and wine lists. She's 6. She'll probably ask you if you can do a handstand and then challenge you to a dance-off. I'll bring my sneakers, she said without missing a beat. They left the restaurant just after 10. Holland's driver pulled up, but instead of getting in, she turned to Wade. Walk with me. He followed her down the block, hands in his pockets. The street was quiet, lined with trees that shimmered with fairy lights. He glanced over and caught her looking at the sky. What's up there? He asked. I used to wish on stars, she said softly. Lately, I forget to look. Well, if you're gonna wish, now's the time. That one's falling. She looked up just in time to see the streak of light vanish across the dark sky. What did you wish for? He asked. If I tell you, it won't come true. He smiled. That's fair. They stopped at the corner where her car waited. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. I meant what I said. I want to meet her. You will, he said, but you should know, she's my whole world. I'm not trying to take her place, she said, but maybe there's room for one more person in it. He didn't kiss her, not yet, but something passed between them, something unspoken, sure, and impossibly fragile. And then she was gone, slipping into the car, leaving behind the faint scent of jasmine and possibility. Addie's arms locked tight around Wade's neck as he balanced her against his hip, her backpack bouncing against his side as they approached the small cafe in the park. It was the kind of spot with crooked umbrella tables and a chalkboard menu that changed with the weather. Holland was already there, seated at a table tucked beneath a birch tree, her blazer hung over the back of her chair and her sleeves rolled to her elbows. Wade set Addie down gently. Remember what I said. Addie nodded. Be polite, don't interrupt, and don't ask if she's wearing makeup unless it's sparkly. He ruffled her hair. Exactly. Holland stood as they approached, and for the first time since he'd met her, Wade saw something close to nerves flicker behind her eyes. "Hi, Addie," she said, crouching to the child's level. "I've heard a lot about you." Addie tilted her head with exaggerated curiosity. "Do you have any pets?" Holland blinked. "No, I don't." "Not even a fish?" "Nope." Addie frowned. "That's a little suspicious." Wade coughed into his fist to hide a laugh. Holland, to her credit, recovered quickly. "Maybe you can help me pick one. I've been thinking about getting a turtle." Addie's grin exploded across her face. "Only if you name it Pancake." "Deal." They sat together as the waitress brought sandwiches and orange juice in mason jars. Addie insisted on cutting the crusts off her sandwich with a plastic knife, narrating the process like she was on a cooking show. Holland listened without interruption, asking questions that somehow didn't talk down to her, and Wade watched the way his daughter leaned closer with every answer. After lunch, Addie ran off to the playground, her pink sneakers leaving dust clouds behind her. Holland leaned back in her chair. "She's incredible." "She's a hurricane in glitter shoes," Wade said, watching her climb the monkey bars. "I mean it, she's sharp, like she sees everything." "She does," Wade said quietly. "Too much sometimes." Holland glanced at him, then reached for her drink. "She asked me if I was sad." "When?" "While you were inside getting napkins." Wade sighed. "She's got radar for that, picks up on things before I do." "What did you tell her?" "I said sometimes I am, but I'm trying not to be." Wade turned toward her. "What made you say yes to this? Being here, with us, it's not exactly your scene." Her eyes followed Addie's movement along the jungle gym. "Because I wanted to know who you were when you weren't trying to be polite. This is who you really are, and I like what I see." "You're not what I expected either." She raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "I thought someone like you would be all walls, but you're curious. You ask questions and actually wait for the answers." "I don't have time for small talk," she said simply, "and I've had enough people fake smiles at me to last a lifetime." They sat in silence for a moment, the wind rustling the trees above. "You ever think about starting over?" Holland asked suddenly. He looked at her, "Like packing up and running away to somewhere no one knows your name." "More like building something new, without having to erase what came before." Wade thought for a moment. "I wouldn't trade what I have with Addie for anything. But yeah, sometimes think about what life would look like if I wasn't constantly trying to stay afloat." "Maybe you don't have to keep doing it alone," she said, not looking at him. Before he could respond, Addie came barreling back, cheeks flushed. "Can we get ice cream now?" Wade looked to Holland. "You up for it?" She stood. "Only if I get to pick the first flavor." Addie gasped. "That's risky." As they walked toward the ice cream stand, Wade noticed how easily Holland adjusted her pace to match Addie's. She wasn't performing. She was present, and that scared him more than he wanted to admit. Later, after Holland hugged Addie goodbye and promised to visit again soon, Wade carried his sleepy daughter home and tucked her into bed. Her fingers curled around his as she mumbled, "She's nice. You can like her if you want." He kissed her forehead, but didn't answer. The next morning, Wade's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. He hesitated, then answered. "I have a proposition," Holland's voice said without preamble. "Come to the penthouse tonight, 7 sharp. Bring nothing but yourself." He hesitated. "You're not going to ask me to clean the carpets again, are you?" "Only if you spill something." When he arrived that evening, the suite looked different. The lights were low, candles flickered on the dining table, and the scent of roasted garlic and herbs filled the air. "You cooked?" he asked, genuinely surprised. "I ordered from a place that lets you lie about it," she said, handing him a glass of wine. "It's the effort that counts." They sat on the couch, plates balanced on their knees. Holland looked at him, serious now. "I want to do something that breaks every rule I've set for myself." "Okay," he said slowly. "Should I be worried?" "I want to offer you a job, not because I pity you and not because I want to fix anything. I need someone, trust to consult on a youth outreach initiative I've been planning. It's been sitting on my desk for months because I didn't have the right voice for it." Wade set his plate down. "You think I'm that voice?" "I know you are. You see people. You understand what it's like to fight for something bigger than yourself. I've been surrounded by people who only care about numbers. You care about impact." He looked down at his hands. "If I say yes, it changes things." "I hope so." He met her gaze. "You're not afraid of this, of what people will say." "I've been living for other people's opinions for years. I'm done." He stood, walked to the window, and stared out at the city stretching beneath them. Then he turned. "Okay." Her shoulders eased, almost imperceptibly. "Okay. I'll do it, but I want to make one thing clear." "Go on." "I'm not interested in being someone you rescue. I want to build something real, something equal." She stood and crossed to him. "Then let's build it." Wade reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Outside, the city pulsed with life. But in that moment, in that room, it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of them standing on the edge of something neither of them had expected, but both of them were ready to claim. The courtyard of Kane Global's Manhattan headquarters was transformed for the launch of their new youth initiative. White tents arched over linen, covered tables, and strings of tiny lights wove between the trees like a constellation descending to Earth. It was the kind of event that usually felt hollow to Wade: big speeches, polite applause, and donors who didn't know the names of the kids they were supposedly helping. But this time, it was his words on the banners, his ideas in the program, his voice in the proposal Holland had championed through every boardroom barrier. Addie skipped beside him, holding the hand of her babysitter, a kind college student Wade had met through one of the new community centers the initiative would fund. Holland had insisted on it no more juggling her care during events. He'd agreed, once Addie gave the sitter a 70-question interview and declared her not boring. Wade adjusted his blazer, the tailored one Holland had surprised him with after his first week consulting. She hadn't said a word about the price, only that it was time he looked like someone who belonged at the table. And tonight, he did. Music played softly from a quartet near the reflecting pool. Guests mingled, sipping champagne and exchanging introductions. But Wade's eyes were already on Holland, who stood near the stage, her black dress simple but striking. She was speaking to two city officials, nodding as they gestured to the skyline beyond the rooftop. She caught his gaze and broke away without hesitation. "You're here," she said as she reached him. "Wouldn't miss it," he said, his hand brushing hers. "You look like someone who just convinced half the city to care." "Only half," she teased. He leaned in slightly, the other half still catching their breath. Her lips curved, but the moment was interrupted by the event coordinator waving them toward the stage. Wade glanced at the crowd. "You sure about this?" "They're here because of you," Holland said. "They just don't know it yet." She walked with him to the steps, pausing just before he went up. "I'm proud of you," she said. He nodded, steadying his breath. When Wade stepped up to the podium, the hum of conversation gradually faded. He scanned the sea of faces, some curious, some skeptical. Then he saw Addie near the back, sitting on her babysitter's lap, waving with one hand and holding a juice pouch in the other. He smiled faintly and began. "When I was younger, I thought success meant silence. It meant pretending you weren't tired or scared or hanging on by your fingernails. I thought it meant never asking for help, especially as a father, especially as a man. But I've learned that building something real, something that lasts, starts with admitting you can't do it alone. He spoke about the kids who didn't have safe places to go after school, about the parents working 3 jobs and still coming up short, about the teachers who bought pencils with their own money, and about the little girl who thought magic was real because her dad never let her see how hard he worked to keep their world spinning. When he finished, the applause didn't come all at once. It rose slowly, like people weren't clapping for a speech, but for a truth they hadn't known they needed to hear. Afterward, people approached him: investors, nonprofit leaders, teachers. They asked questions, shook his hand, handed him cards. But he kept searching the crowd until he found Holland again, standing at the edge of the reflecting pool, her arms folded loosely. He crossed to her, and before he could speak, she reached into her clutch and pulled out a small, folded paper. "I wasn't going to give you this until later," she said, "but now seems right." He opened it. Inside was a plane ticket, 2 seats, open-ended, anywhere on the list of cities the initiative had touched. "Addie keeps asking when she can go on a real adventure," Holland said. "Figured maybe the 3 of us could pick a place." He looked between the ticket and her. "Are you sure?" "I've spent years building empires," she said. "I want to build a life now, with you, with her, something that doesn't have to impress a room to be real." He took her hand. "You know she's going to insist on picking the destination, right?" "I'm hoping she does." The night wound down, and gradually the crowd thinned. Wade and Holland stood near the edge of the rooftop, city lights blazing around them like stars caught in glass. "She told me she wants to be a lawyer," Holland said, watching Addie dance near the fountain. Wade nodded. "This week. Last week it was a zookeeper." "She said she wants to help people who don't have anyone to stand up for them." He turned to her. "She's been watching you." "No," Holland said softly. "She's been watching us." There was no grand announcement, no dramatic kiss under falling fireworks. Just the quiet certainty of 2 people who had walked through fire and found something waiting on the other side. Something unexpected, something extraordinary. When they left the rooftop, Holland's hand found his, and this time he didn't let go. They didn't need declarations. They didn't need promises shouted from balconies or engraved in marble. What they had was stronger than all of it. They had each other, and the life they were finally ready to live. The brownstone Wade had walked past every morning on his way to the subway now belonged to him. Well, technically, it belonged to both of them. Holland had signed the deed over with the kind of quiet finality she reserved for life-altering decisions: no fanfare, no lingering doubt. Just a simple statement. It's ours now. What used to be a 4-unit rental had been converted into a single home, complete with a sunroom. Holland redesigned herself, and a backyard where Addie was currently attempting to teach Pancake the turtle how to fetch. Wade stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled to the elbows, whisk in hand as he stirred a thick batter for the pancakes Addie had requested for dinner. Not breakfast. Dinner. Holland had raised an eyebrow but hadn't argued. The rule in their house wasn't "because I said so," it was "prove it makes sense." And Addie had given a 5-minute monologue on why pancakes were better at night. She'd won. "Why is there flour on the dog?" Holland's voice floated in from the hallway as she stepped into view, barefoot, wearing an old concert t-shirt Wade recognized from a box of things she'd never worn in public until now. "He tripped over the bag," Wade said casually. "I'm 90% sure it was on purpose." "You're not giving him enough credit. He's strategic." "Not strategic enough to avoid the vacuum," he said, glancing toward the living room where their rescue mutt, Rocket, sulked under the couch. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely. "You're making the cinnamon ones." "They're the only kind Addie will eat now." Good, I like them too. He tilted his head. You never said that. I don't say everything. She stepped closer and plucked a spoon from the drawer. But I show up, always. You do, he said, watching her taste the batter. You didn't have to. You had every reason to walk away back when this was just chaos and compromise. She set the spoon down and met his eyes. That was before I knew it was the kind of chaos I wanted to keep. Addie burst through the back door, cheeks flushed, arms held high. Pancake moved a whole 2 inches when I called him. That counts. It absolutely counts, Holland said, crouching to high-five her. You're a turtle whisperer. Addie grinned, then looked between them. Can I sleep in the sunroom tonight? I want to watch the moon until I fall asleep. Wade exchanged a glance with Holland. Only if you clean up the glitter from last time. I will, she said, already sprinting toward her room. I'll even vacuum. They waited until the door closed behind her. Wade turned back to the stove, flipping a pancake. She's different now, Holland said quietly, pulling a stool from under the island. She feels safe, he said. For a long time, it was just me trying to keep her from seeing what we didn't have. You gave her everything that mattered. You still do. He looked at her, so do you. They didn't need to say it out loud, but it was there in every beat of silence between them. This was their life now. A dog with flour in his fur. A turtle named after breakfast. A house filled with laughter, mismatched furniture, and a small girl who believed in the magic of pancakes at night. Later, after dinner dishes had been stacked, and Addie had nestled into a tangle of pillows in the sunroom, Wade joined Holland on the rooftop deck above their bedroom. The city flickered below, a quieter kind of hum than the one they used to find separately on different rooftops, in different lives. He handed her a mug of tea. You ever think about how fast everything changed? She rested her head against his shoulder. It didn't feel fast, it felt overdue. I used to think love was something you had to chase down. Earn, fight for until you were too tired to stand. And now I think love shows up when you're finally still enough to see it. She reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his. You're not afraid anymore. I'm still afraid, but now it's about missing something, not losing everything. She looked at him, her voice softer than the wind moving through the treetops. I love you, Wade. He didn't hesitate. I love you, Holland. I'm in this all the way. They didn't kiss right away. They just stayed like that, wrapped in the quiet certainty of having found something real. Something earned. Something neither of them had expected, but both of them had been ready for when it finally came. The city stretched around them, a little less sharp than it used to be, a little softer at the edges. Downstairs, Addie stirred in her nest of blankets and fairy lights, whispering something to Pancake about dreams and moonlight. Inside, Rocket snored under the couch. And on the rooftop, Wade and Holland held each other, not because they needed to be saved, but because they'd finally found someone worth holding on to. The next morning, Addie woke up to the smell of cinnamon pancakes again, this time for breakfast. Holland was already in the kitchen, wearing one of Wade's hoodies, flipping batter with the same focus she used at board meetings. Addie climbed into a stool and grinned. You're getting better at this. Holland looked over. Your dad's teaching me. Wade leaned in from the hallway. She's a fast learner. Addie looked between them and nodded solemnly. Good, because I think we're going to need a lot of pancakes. Wade kissed Holland's temple. Then we'll make them, always. And they did, every Saturday, every celebration, every quiet morning when the world outside didn't matter, because everything they needed was already right there.